We've covered why it matters to owners to have workers' comp. We've covered a brief history of workers' comp. We talked about the state-by-state mandates and variations. We covered the benefits of having workers' comp. We talked about claims in the industry, the most common. We discussed safety measures to prevent claims. We covered handling workers' comp claims. And we also just wrapped up with creating a safety culture. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much, David. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, I've never been told that, talking insurance is fun, but dude, anything I get to do with you is a blast. And, I think final thoughts are, at the end of the day, I know with what you're doing here is a huge asset to restaurateurs, and I think it's beautiful. I'm so glad to have met you, over a year ago in Phoenix, and anything that I can do to be a provided resource or an asset to anybody. Look, I'm 25 years in the business. I've owned 13 restaurants. I've been doing insurance on them 25 years. But at the end of the day, I'm in a good place where I just want to help people. So if there's anybody that's out there that just wants to talk to somebody, wants a side, sort of a conversation about what's going on and some sort of, opinion or therapy, I'm here as a resource because of you. And I appreciate that.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you back on the show for a second time, CEO and owner of barandrestaurantinsurance.com, my man, David DeLorenzo. Are you feeling unstoppable today?
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. What a great way to spend a Tuesday. I appreciate you asking me to be on.
Dude, I'm psyched to have you. So this is the second time you're on the show. The first time was episode 1087, over 100 episodes ago. And it was John Bankwell from Louie Louie's who put you on my radar. We connected when I was out in Phoenix. It was a great conversation. You are a wealth of knowledge in the world of insurance. And I'm hoping that this is going to be one of many deep dive conversations into the world of insurance. But today we're going to be talking about protecting your people and your business, a deep dive into workman's compensation for the restaurant industry. There was actually a member of Restaurant Unstoppable Network that reached out and said this is a challenge for them. So, when somebody in the community says I'm struggling with this, that is my cue to think of somebody I know, to reach out to them and to create content specifically for them. And I'm loving the ability to be able to do this. I can't wait to dive into the conversation. But real quick, why don't you get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra? What do you got for us?
Yeah. So my success quote is going to be: success isn't just about the next move. It's about measuring this one. So be in the present, stay sharp, and protect the people that are counting on you. And that's real leadership. And so as we get into talking about workers' comp, really workers' comp isn't just about insurance coverage. It's actually about the people in your restaurant, the people that you invest so much time, and they invest so much time and effort into you to help your restaurants run. So that's why I picked that quote for today.
Honestly, man, it really resonates with me. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in the show is that growth doesn't come from putting your energy out. It comes from putting your energy in, focusing on what we're already doing today better. And if you do that, then it ripples out. The growth comes to you. It's not the other way around.
For sure. It's really energy out, energy in. When if you want to get metaphysical on it and kind of get away from the insurance aspect of things, really, when you hire a staff that you show a lot of that commitment and dedication, and you take care of them, and not just monetarily, but in a sympathetic way of understanding and listening and all that sort of stuff. Again, what I do for a living, bar, restaurant insurance, when it comes down to it, not the most exciting stuff from the surface. But when you dig down deep and you realize after doing it for 25 years and you dig down deep into it, it's really about protecting owners, protecting employees, protecting patrons. It's about protecting people, because with what we're doing in this world, hopefully we'll continue to have people, but God only knows with AI coming out, we all might be screwed.
Right. I mean, don't even get me started on that subject, but really at the core of it, right? What is insurance? It's security. And if you're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's that next step beyond it. Do I have food and shelter? Do I feel secure? And in today's age, you need to have insurance to really cover all bases in terms of security. And beyond that, it's all the other things like literally like giving serving, protecting other people through helping them grow and creating opportunity for them, right? And like that's what it's all about. So I can 100% get behind what you're sharing today, and it's a great way to get this thing started. So today, you're going to cover real quick just why does workman's comp matter to restaurant owners. We're going to talk about a brief history of workman's comp. We're going to dive into state-by-state mandates and variations. We're going to cover the benefits of workman's comp. We're going to discuss common claims in the industry, safety measures to prevent the claims, and handling of workman's comp claims. And then if we have any questions at the end, this is a live recording. We're going to open it up for a Q&A. So why don't we just bring it right to the top? Introduction. Why does this matter to restaurant owners?
Yeah, you made a very interesting point before we even dig into that. And that's the fact that insurance is, how do I say, conceptually, insurance really is a privilege. If you or me or anybody else is actually even able to purchase it, it's really a privilege to be able to do that. Think about how many people can't even eat, let alone us as business owners or consumers, or even people that have families that buy life insurance that, God forbid, something happens to, Bill, the dad of, 4, and he gets hit in a car accident or something. And now he's got $1 million or $5 million to leave behind for his family. What would happen if he didn't have that? So it really is a privilege for me to be able to be in an industry that I feel, for the most part, protects and provides for people. Now, I know that, with, your listening audience, most of these people are restaurateurs. I think a lot of times, and rightfully so, it's like we're looking at our margins. How do we escape the plethora of rising rates? Because that's all we hear about now is rising rates and increases and all those sorts of things. And unfortunately, we're just kind of in a world of supply and demand, and we're in a world of, a lot of natural catastrophes to this and that. We can make and liability, legal, a lot of plaintiff attorneys suing for this and that. And what people really do need to understand is insurance is also a business, right? It's not one of these things that necessarily, now in some cases it is, but it's not really anything that the government is just providing to people, like Social Security that you pay into or other things, where it should all be, equal and a lot of times, quote unquote, affordable or this and that. No, these companies come in and out of the market. Believe it or not, a lot of insurance companies do go out of business. I know it's hard to believe, but we only hear about the really big ones. The ones that are still around, they got to do what they got to do to fix their margins and their rates in order to be able to keep up and to be able to still provide this. Because if we don't have an option to buy this or do this, and something tragic goes wrong, whether that's with a patron or one of your employees or even your, even yourself, then we're back to the 1900s. So when you get into, we'll get into the work comp aspect of things now too. The major federal workers' compensation law wasn't passed until 1908. So a little bit of history there. And it was covering civilian employees that were in hazardous work. And think about, in 1908, what they were building back then, how the framework of America was basically, coming, with the industrialization and all the different things that were going on. So they had to figure out a way to, protect these people that were legitimately putting their lives on the line, right? This isn't, Sally sitting inside of Hallmark, having to have work comp coverage for if she were to slip on the floor. These are men primarily, building bridges and blowing things up. And so that's when it first started. The coverage got a little bit broader.
Sorry to interrupt. Was this the Eisenhower era? Is this my presidents and my dates aren't the best?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably a quick search will probably take that in. I don't know if it was.
Look real quick. Sorry to interrupt. I mean, I just remember.
That's okay.
I had this Eisenhower was 1953 to 1961. I can't remember who was 1903, but like I just had this vision of people like those photos of like the men working on skyscrapers with no safety harnesses on, and then like we were also expanding the West at this time. We're building things like dams, and like there was just so many like out west, like the things that were happening with like the Hoover. I think I'm thinking of Hoover. Is that who it was? Probably the Hoover Dam,
right?
Like and all that stuff that was going on. I should have been able to figure that one out.
No, but absolutely
crazy. Dangerous work.
It's funny you bring up that date though, because it states here that Wisconsin was leading the way in workers' comp, and then by 1948 By 1948, right on the cusp of, what you're talking about there, they started implementing it in every state. So now that's 1948. Think about it. If you really think about it, your parents are alive then, for most of us, right? So it's really not that long ago. And what they did is they established what's called a no-fault system. So what that, in English really means is that if somebody were to get hurt on the job, it's of no fault of the employer, right? It's just you're on the job, you get hurt, and there's going to be coverage for that. And so that's how all of this had been established now, and it allows for people to receive benefits for work-related, injury or illnesses or things like that without having to sue their employer. Because the last thing you want to do is be an employer and be in a situation where you're always worried about your employees suing you for something that may, have been neglect on your part or may not.
Yeah. One thing I'm kind of curious about, and I don't know how far or deep we want to go down to this subject, but like I consider myself pretty middle of the road when it comes to politics. I think that, to your point earlier, insurance is an open market. It's a business at the end of the day, right? Yeah. Like where do we draw the line with just like, I do think there are some things in terms of communism, quote unquote, that aren't horrible, like police department and fire department and like the postal service. Like there are some good communal things, right, that are beneficial that we should all just have access to for our basic human rights and security. Where do you think insurance falls into that spectrum of like just universal rights of just having insurance and security?
Well, I think yes, is really the short answer. I also know that there are state mandated programs that are run by states. I know that there have been other programs run by states that are now run out of business. So, there can always be the argument of, yes, everybody should have this. It should be run by the state. But unfortunately, it's come to my witness that most state organizations just don't run things as good as private practice. Not to say that private practice doesn't have their evils and their things that happen, but it's an and you can go down so many rabbit holes. You can go down the rabbit hole of liability. You can go down the rabbit hole of workers' comp programs. You can go, a private health insurance.
Well, that's kind of where my mind was thinking. Like, where there's this big conversation about universal healthcare. Like, does workman's comp in a world that we want this country to be built on the working class, right?
Right.
Is there no security for these people? And I don't know. I feel like it could be lumped into that mindset of just like general, most basic human needs. If you're going to contribute to this country to put your effort, your work in, like I feel like it could be in that realm of like universal healthcare.
No, I agree. And I think work comp would be a good, additive to, that sort of thing. I think it makes sense. It's, fortunately, unfortunately, one of those mechanisms that depending on the state, it's more volatile than not. But yeah, I do think that could be a good conversation. But as of now, they've only had certain states that have actually, put it together to be a maintained state program. So
yeah, you did mention that you think that it's better in the private sector versus then controlled by the state. Not exactly your words, but I'm paraphrasing. What do you mean? Why is that the case? Why is this something that the state isn't as well equipped to handle?
Again, I'm like you. I don't really have a political affiliation, nor do I give a crap. I don't even watch the news, and maybe that's just
depressing. Is it even the news or is it propaganda? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I watch hospitality news just to see what's going on in the restaurant industry because that's my job.
Who are you watching? I'm curious.
What's up?
Who are you watching? I'm curious.
Pretty much emails, like from what is it? I just get an influx of stuff that I've kind of been either on their podcast or, things like that, but mainly local within Arizona here. There's a lot of publications and stuff like that come out. And it's really the opening and closings of stuff or what laws are being passed that could have a adverse effect on my clients or not, right? Or things that could change. I mean, especially during COVID, it was so important to kind of know what everything was changed like every 5 seconds on what a restaurant could or could not do. So yeah, so everything was, it just changed all about. But to your point, like I just don't think that necessarily unless you're dedicated to it and you have somebody that really understands insurance, I just don't think that the government is really the best business operator to, to run those sorts of things. I think they're good at a lot of other things. But I've yet to seen a real good insurance program come together that's been, governmentally run as of yet. So,
interesting. Yeah. Tempted to go further into that, but I want to stay focused.
Yeah.
So in terms of the history of workman's comp, is there anything else that you have not gotten out?
Well, again, work comp, it was set up for more of those hazardous, sorts of workplaces in the very beginning. And then it just became available for every sort of industry. So specifically talking about restaurants, like why do we have work comp in restaurants, and obviously the restaurant industry has really unique, sorts of risk. When, as a restaurateur, if you not had somebody that has a cut finger or, unfortunately has gotten burned or maybe picked up something the wrong way and hurt their back. I mean, there's just a number of different things. Look, being in the restaurant industry and working in a restaurant is a very labor intensive, physical, type of work. And I don't think that people understand that aren't in the restaurant industry, how tiresome it can be when you're on your feet, 9 hours, a shift or whatever it is. And you're getting towards the end of that. And if you're not cognizant of what's going on with your body and how you're moving stuff, you're just always going to be prone to injury a lot more than say when you're, in a low type of risk or even a high risk sort of job where if you're this is an opinion, if you're in a high risk job, like a construction sort of thing, and you know what you're doing for that day, and you have a lot of the safety protocols and the harnesses and all those things ingrained that help you, I really think that you're in a safer place than sporadically running around a restaurant with all the different things from sharp objects to hot oils to slippery floors to, just random patrons to doors, back of house, front of house slamming in your face. I mean, there's a lot that goes on with that. So, again, the history of it and the amount of money that's been paid out for restaurants through work comp, I don't know the exact statistic, but it's been a good benefit for restaurants to surely have. So that's really the history aspect of it.
Got it. So wrapping up the history, you kind of already alluded to the state by state nature, the mandates and the variations. Get more into that.
Yeah. So, okay, here's some unique situations. So like in Kansas, they only do work comp if you have a gross payroll over $20,000. They must provide coverage, like it's mandated there, right? Virginia, you have a mandate that starts at 2 or more employees. Most states will allow the owners to exclude themselves from work comp because a lot of times they don't want to pay for the premium because it's their restaurant. They may carry their own health insurance. They don't want to necessarily, double dip on that sort of thing. And they'll save the money on the coverage. So they would sign like an acknowledgement form, just taking them off of the policy sort of thing. And they can, exclude themselves. So, and if you have a sole proprietor, same sort of thing. There's other triggers like, let's see, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, they all require just one employee for workers' comp to have to kick in. Missouri, all construction businesses require coverage with even just one employee. So there's just a lot of different stuff that that different states have. And my advice on this portion of it is to really, whatever state that you're in, that your restaurant's in, make sure that you understand what those states' laws are, what's mandated, what needs to be done. It's under my interpretation that most states will mandate workers' comp. And if you're not carrying it, and I could be wrong on this, there might be some states that exclude it, but from the states that I deal with, primarily Arizona and a few others out in the West, you have to have it or you can very much get penalized and that sort of thing. And then also every state is going to have different rates. So when you look at how workers' comp is calculated, it's based on your payroll and your employee class code. And then if you have a claims history, that claims history is going to come into place. Well, every state is going to have a certain amount per, dollar rate. And so when you look at, say, a state like California, I haven't written a work comp in California in a long time. I actually owned a restaurant out there, and I owned a restaurant in Arizona. So I could really look at the both and the comparison of what it was. And at the time, California was probably 6 or 7 times the rate of what Arizona was. And again, it's just the way that the carriers look at the state based on the litigation, the laws, the exposure. So that's a pretty extreme example, but I think for the most part, a lot of the states are, pretty in line with a lot of the other states.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network. Right. I can't help but think of, and this isn't obviously workman's comp insurance, but it is under the realm of restaurant insurance, which is basically liability insurance, dram shop laws, and all this. And I'm thinking of Charleston. I'm thinking of South Carolina. I just recently introduced you to Keith and John and was it Scott out there who we had on the show. And I'm always trying to connect my network, and what they're dealing with out there with the dram shop laws and the crazy liability that no insurance company is going to touch right now. Where I'm going with this is there any scenario out there where we need to create awareness in terms relative to workman's comp policies that are just states that just like need to rewrite their laws, and almost to the point where like lawyers are just abusing the way that these laws are written because they're just not good?
No, because work comp is, to me, it's just very cut and dry. Employee gets hurt, you turn it in, you have the coverage. Really, I don't see many attorneys, if at all, in my 25 years ever get involved on work comp claims, because it's usually there has to be a lot of things that happen in order for an attorney or for a lawsuit to really happen on that sort of thing. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, because it does, but liability is really the trigger point, and it's the main pool of money that these attorneys, in my experience, go after. A work comp is pretty cut and dry. It's one of those things where you're having an employee get hurt, you're sending them to the emergency room. They're getting it, that claim is or is not getting investigated due to the type of claim, what had happened, what's on video, was there certain things going on? Can we get them back to work? You have a lot of return to work programs, and if they, don't want to go back, what does the doctor note say to not get them back? So there's just too many other things in there where I just don't see a lot of lawsuits. Now, you probably would see more of a lawsuit if like a work comp claim got, say, denied, and this person wanted to go after the establishment for the denial of the claim, i.e. the insurance company. You would see a little bit more of that, but you don't see a lot of them getting denied, because again, it's really cut and dry with these things a lot of times. Not to say that there's not some stuff that can go on both ends, right? Both from the insurance company denying something that could be very legit, or from the employee creating something that may or may not have happened at work, and they're trying to get some paid off time and some compensation.
We're going to talk more about that later.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold on.
The other thing I wanted to add too, just about the different state by state rules and variations, is that independent contractors are generally not covered. So this is really important for restaurateurs to understand. They're generally not covered, but the businesses, the restaurants, whether it's the person coming in to do the janitorial service, if you have a DJ, any of these sorts of things, if you have any of this sort of stuff going on and they are not actual employees, it's always important to collect a certificate of insurance for these people showing that they have some sort of coverage, or else they will, at least as it states in Arizona. And again, I have to be very specific because of what I know out here. Check the laws and the regulations within your own state, or call me and I'll help you find them. But Arizona is very specific to the fact that, if somebody is doing work and they are directed towards you, or the work is directed towards you and you're an independent contractor. So if you're, again, taking orders from the owner or the boss and they're on your premise and they're doing work for you, if they get hurt and they don't have their own insurance, that will primarily fall on your policy, and it will be attached to your record for the next 5 years. And I've had a case where we had this happen with a DJ that was up in a booth. He ended up messing up his ACL. It was like a $55,000 claim. That $55,000 claim did get paid out on the nightclub's insurance, and they had to live with it, on what's called their on their mod. They had to live with it for the next 5 years.
So it's going to affect their rate, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, as the gig economy is on the rise, do gig economy employees fall under this? But as I'm even saying this, I'm thinking of like Uber, and when you go to work for Uber, like they make sure you have insurance, right? So like, does it fall on a third party that like aggregates this community of workers?
Well, I can tell you organizations like that always have their what's covered. So right. I don't even think Uber, I'm pretty sure Uber wouldn't even protect your car if you got in an accident and you're driving. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the case of gig economy, are we making sure that we're getting a certificate of insurance? Does that fall under gig economy employees?
Yeah, for sure.
Got it. Anything else in terms of state by state we should talk about?
No, that's it. North Dakota right now, from what I'm seeing, is the only private insurance, self-insurance, is the only state where private insurance and self-insurance is not permitted. So if you're in North Dakota, I guess you can't get insurance from an actual carrier. But other than that, yeah, there's a private insurance out there that's available. And then some of those will complement other, state-run funds. So Arizona used to have a state-run compensation fund, and they got rid of it years ago. And then a private carrier called Copper Point came in and actually had taken over that program.
Oh, wow. So far we've covered why this matters. Why does workers' comp matter? We've covered a brief history of workers' comp. We just discussed the state-by-state mandates and variations, and now you're going to break into the benefits of workers' compensation. Go for it.
Yeah, so workers' comp, there's several important benefits of it. And so in a nutshell, number one, it's going to cover medical expenses, right? So the policy is going to pay for medical care related to, workplace injuries, which is great because, a lot of times if you have somebody that doesn't have health insurance and they're on the job and they get hurt, this policy is going to come into play and help take care of them and get them back to, where they should be, as should be, if you're hurt on the job. It's also going to provide lost wage compensation. So employees that miss work due to a workplace injury is going to receive a portion of their wages during recovery. And so that's going to help them financially because they're injured, they can't go to work and make money. Right. It'll help with disability and death benefits. So it's going to provide support for employees who suffer partial disability as a result of a workplace injury. And in a tragic, accident, if there's a fatal accident that ends up happening, it's going to also offer death benefits to an employee's family. I.e. in the representation of, sort of like life insurance, but not really, but that is there. It does offer legal liability protection. So when you accept the benefits, what it does is that the employees, they're going to give up their right to sue the employer for negligence and, for them getting injured on the job. And that's big for the employer. Again, if you look into it, and then back to kind of your question on how to change the laws for work comp, because if it's like liquor, at the end of the day, most of these establishments, they're required to carry work comp. But if you do get into a situation where, say, Jack is, working and he gets hurt, and this establishment didn't carry work comp, there, that's where you can really get into some legal ramifications, not just with the state, but, through the, say the employee's attorney per se. So,
right. So you mentioned with the legal liability protection through or one of the benefits, and the employee gives up their right to sue the employer. So is that something that like you have to disclose to your employee when they come to work for you, that like, hey, we carry a workman's compensation. If you want to sue us, if you get injured, you can't. Is that like a disclosure or disclaimer you need to make?
From my understanding, that most of that stuff is in the onboarding employee handbook, right? Or it should be, just depending on how it is. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, employee retention and satisfaction. I mean, I don't know if this is really a benefit, but it's kind of stated as one where offering it, it develops a commitment to their well-being. You're stating that, hey, we're offering this to you, even though you probably are obligated to, but in the case that something happens, you're going to be taken care of. So,
peace of mind.
Go ahead.
Peace of mind.
Yeah. Employees want to feel protected when they're at work and they're taken care of for sure. Financial stability for the business. This is an obvious, like if something were to happen, you're not paying for their medical bills. You're not paying for the cost of an attorney to represent yourself to, get off of some sort of, negligent claim lawsuit or something like that. So, obviously you pay in to not have to pay out per se for that. And then just being in compliance with the state laws. In most states, carrying workers' comp is a legal requirement for the businesses and the employees. So you just want to avoid, obviously, penalties and fees and all that by carrying it. So those are the main benefits there of having workers' comp.
So when you're getting your insurance and you get to this line item called the workers' comp, is there like a range of coverage you can get, or is it pretty cut and dry? Like you sign up for it, like this is the package. Like, can you choose to spend a little bit more for better coverage or less for less coverage?
Yeah, there's amount of the limit you can get. So you can get, usually the three types of limits that you'll see in this sort of thing is like $100,000, per injury, maximum. And then you'll see $500,000, and then you'll see $1 million. And I always sell $1 million just so that there's enough, per injury if something were to happen, because obviously to get somebody in a detrimental injury, nowadays, to be sent to the hospital and have a $250,000 hospital bill and then time off work and all that stuff
adds up fast.
Yeah, it adds up fast. And the fact of the matter is when you do the rates on 500,000 to $1 million, we're talking peanuts. We're talking maybe a couple $100 just to, double the coverage.
Over a year or in the
over a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get really surprised when I get a hold of a policy and somebody has rated it down on the lower tier for whatever reason. They just, they may not know, they may not understand, they may not have even bothered. But yeah, I would always suggest going for the $1 million, because it just does, at least in this state, I can tell you it does not cost that much more. It's almost unnoticeable. So.
Got it. So we just covered the benefits of workers' compensation. Now get into some of the common claims in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be pretty obvious for people listening, and you probably can relate and have probably seen some of these, if not all of these. So number one, we're going to talk about like cuts and punctures and scrapes, that sort of thing. So believe it or not, like some of the biggest claims can happen in a wine bar, or say a more of a fine dining restaurant, when you're washing the wine glass, right? And it's that really thin glass. And then all of a sudden the glass breaks and it can like slit your wrist. I've had that claim. It can be very yeah, it can be crazy disgusting.
You actually reminded me of a story that was told from a guest in Phoenix. His name is escaping me. There's what's that bar that just recently got like best bar in America, or like they're getting a ton of like recognition for like their level of creativity. They have that like bar that you feel like you're in the hull of a boat. Undertow. Yeah. The name of the gentleman's escaping me. He's one of the partners.
Jason Asher.
I don't think it was one of his partners that came from the Fox restaurant concept.
Matt.
Matt, thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt Snap. So
yes.
Matt was telling a story. He dropped a wine bottle, and as the wine bottle was going down and he was going to reach for it, it hit the ground just before he caught it, and he shoved his hand into a broken, shattered glass.
Ah, dude, painful.
You reminded me of that story. I could not hold it together when he was telling it, but yeah, I mean, like glass, you know, it's dangerous. Like it's like crazy things can happen. I'm still shivering from telling that story. I'm sorry if anybody just lost their lunch.
And that's, I mean, that's really severe. But you know, when you look at cuts and sharp objects and and slicers, you know, if you're mandolin and oh god. So I've had people lose fingers. I've had all sorts of really gross stuff. They're stating, you know, when you look at the averages in the insurance journal and all that, it's about an average of about, you know, $1,800 per claim. So, you know, not horrible, not one of the what they quote unquote would think as being one of the majors. And I think the things that we've talked about are very rare, if at all. Now, when we get into tier 2, which can be really bad, and I've had this claim as well, are burns and I guess they call them scalds. If you get scalded, right?
Scolded, yeah.
Yeah. So such a weird word. But burns are the second most common claim. And they can be obviously hot surfaces, boiling water, fryers. You see a lot of these types, and I'm sure you've talked to them or you have an affiliation or maybe a relationship with these types of people that come in and they'll actually suck the oil out. They'll take the oil away, you know, and then kind of put fresh oil in. And that actually will help prevent some of those burns with those work comp claims.
Yes, Restaurant Technologies Inc., past sponsor, hopefully future sponsor. Really love that organization. And they, just by outsourcing that, you're removing that liability. You're not having to move, not to mention it will burn you, but it's also slippery. You know, you could slip and fall. It reduces slip and fall. They also offer hood cleaning services too, which can reduce your insurance.
For sure.
They like, it's like a mist that they blow up into like the exhaust vent, and it just breaks up the grease from like, there's a bunch of things out there you can do, which up front seem like additional operational costs, but over time with reducing your insurance, it's like the cost benefit outweighs the initial cost.
Yeah. And I think the really important thing for people to take from this is the fact that you have to talk to your broker. Go do these things because number one, you want to be safe and you want to have the cleanest restaurant, provide the freshest food. Most importantly, make sure your employees are safe at all times and mitigate any and all risks that you possibly can, right? Might cost you a little more in the front phase of it because you're doing it right and you're doing more things than what a lot of people are probably either knowledgeable to do or wanting to do. So the thing is like, okay, cool, I've done this. Now go back to your broker, call Rick, okay, over at blah, blah insurance, call him and say, hey, bud, I've done these things. Here's the receipts. Can you go back to Liberty Mutual? Can you ask them for 5 or 10%? I'm telling you, these companies have the ability to give more pricing. You have to ask for it, but you got to give them something in order to ask for it. And no offense to Rick, okay, the broker, Rick's busy. Rick's running a business. He's probably got, 17 other clients he's touching today and doing things. You're the last thing from the top of his mind, unless you, Mr. Restaurant or Mrs. Restaurateur, go and make him top of mind and say, hey, look, I heard this on a podcast. I got all this stuff done. Can you ask Liberty for some sort of pricing on this? And generally with the underwriters have this proof of safety and proof of action that has been taken, that they can move the dollar a little bit. And now you get the service either paid for or you've just made a little bit of money because you saved even more on your insurance. So,
right. So we're talking about, things you can do to get a higher, I guess, coverage, your leverage, your wiggle room to get that money that's on the table. Are we getting kind of into the next area here, which is the safety measures to prevent the claims? Where like,
correct.
Okay. So is this a natural transition to the next?
Yeah, it is. I just kind of squirreled. Let me go over a few of the other big claims that happen, and then we'll go into safety measures. So muscle strains and sprains, you do see those. They're actually, when they do happen, they can be really bad because that takes a long time to come back. If you get a cut or something like that and it's minimum, you can go get stitched up, get a Band-Aid, you can be back at work, right? But with strains, if you're lifting something heavy and you're moving it and you're out for 2 weeks, you got to pay for that time off for that person. You got to get them back, physical therapy, all those things. Those are bigger claims. Slips, trips, and falls. To your point, the RTI, when it helps with, not having slippery floors and stuff like that. Man, you're running around back a house and to front a house, and then you're slipping on something. Same thing. That's going to cause a really bad sort of fracture. It can cause muscle tears, all sorts of stuff that could ACLs. I mean,
right. I was just thinking that. And like, if you hurt your lower back too, almost anybody who hurts their back is never 100% the same.
It's
like,
the worst.
It's like, it's like an injury that just keeps coming back. It's like whatever that initial thing is, like, it's like you're prone to it going forward.
So back injuries are like one of the biggest. They average 60,000 to 85,000 per claim. Think about that. So there's got to be some sort of protocol when we get into safety measures that we'll talk about to prevent back injuries. And then the last thing would be fractures, and fractures are very costly, and they're rare, but they can happen if something happens to where you run into something or something gets run into you in that aspect. So those are the big most common claims in the restaurant industry. And then when we get into key safety measures, we can talk about all sorts of stuff. But to your point, when we're looking at saving money and we're looking at doing certain things to mitigate cost, right? So how do we save money, not just on the workers' comp, but even say the package policy? I think that there's room to wiggle on all of this stuff. So let's go back to RTI. Let's go back to the fact that this sort of a vendor, whoever it is, comes in, cleans your hoods, takes care of the oil, makes sure that your surfaces aren't slippery. Now you've got a twofold sort of discount there. Okay. You've got the aspect of your place not burning down because you don't have all this extra grease because it's being maintained. It's being cleaned correctly. You have documentation of that, right? But you also have the documentation of your floors being clean, having the non-slip sort of, items in there and all those sorts of things. So you can actually ask for a double dip on those policies as well to, get some discounting. Speaking specifically with workers' comp, here's some other things to do to be able to stay in the game. And especially if you've had claims and you have, you're over that threshold of being even, of money paid in as opposed to money paid out. Other things, look, train your employees, right? I mean, I guess we can beat that in the head. It's like really evaluate, take a breath, evaluate, and look at your training practices. What are you doing or what are you not doing? How often are you doing it? When you onboard somebody, are they actually going through some sort of online training protocol or not? Those sorts of things. So number one would be just training front of house, back of house, having them understand proper equipment use, safe food handling, even emergency procedures. We live in a really weird world right now with active shooter things going on. And I know it sounds, crazy. This will never happen to me. I've had those claims where people have been in parking lots with guns. I had somebody actually come into a crab place, right? Go get your yummy crabs. This is not a nightclub. This is open during the day crab. The girl came in with a pistol because she was mad that her to-go order wasn't correct.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you had employees that were trying to protect other employees. I got video of this whole thing. Guy comes out, one of the servers came out with a chair and just banged her in the next week to get her out of there and get the gun knocked out. But again, if that person had been injured or somebody had been shot in there, that's a work comp claim.
What if it was an employee? Would that still be work comp?
If it was a customer liability claim.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So right now, I think the biggest thing I'm taking away in terms of in terms of measures to prevent the claim, you can't really prevent the claim as much as you can do everything in your power to reduce the amount of claims. I guess, like, you can't stop somebody from making a claim, but if you are doing everything humanly possible to educate and to create a safe environment, then the natural progress is, or the natural state of evolution is, fewer claims will be made because you're being proactive. And if you can prove that, if you can show that you're putting in, that you have documented systems and SOPs and protocols for any of the most popular things that you just listed, whether that be a cut or a burn or a strain or pain or a fracture, if you're thinking of all the possible scenarios and there is a process in place to reduce that, then you can get a lower premium.
Yep, 100%.
And and that is that the big takeaway.
That really is the big takeaway. I mean, again, let's look at the other aspects of what you can utilize in the restaurant. Cut gloves. If you're prepping food and you're cutting away, why not just have some gloves that can't cut your hand, right? I know a lot of people that I've heard through the marketplace don't necessarily like to use them because they kind of get in the way, but it's better to keep 5 fingers instead of having 4, in my opinion. Yeah.
Sharpen your knives.
Right. Yeah. Having the correct footwear, so that you don't slip on the surfaces. I know a lot of restaurants will, ship people off, or they'll tell them where to go get the nonstick, footwear sort of stuff to keep those people safe. Slip resistant mats, and making sure in high traffic areas that those sorts of things are located, and not just buying it and having it there, but actually utilizing it and doing safety protocols and walk through every day as the manager, walking through, making sure that these, things are in place and that your environment on a daily basis is safe, and that there's constant reminders to the employees that, hey, today we're going to run, a safe ship today. Here's the things to look out for. Take your time. And I know that the hospitality industry can be so stressful, especially when there's a dinner or a lunch rush and you're just trying to get things out and you got people barking at the other end. Where's my food? Where's this and that? Look, if you set the expectations from the very beginning and you just allow your staff a little bit of that leeway to be safe first and get the food out second, you're going to, I just think you'll come a long way, and you'll notice that it's not that much of a difference gap, but there's more time for them to reflect, take a breath, and understand that, okay, cool, I don't have to fly out this door every 2 seconds. I can actually take my time, with respect to what's going on, and understand that I'll be safer. And so will my coworkers,
Right. I'm curious in terms of like the slip resistance mats and the shoes, or specifically the shoes. Do you see restaurants who will provide an allowance to go purchase the shoes, or is it just like a mandatory, if you work here, you have to, like, here are a list of shoes that we let you wear to work? Like what is, like, both?
Yeah, both. It really depends on the restaurant group, who it is. I mean, probably your little mom and pops or whatever. Not all, but I would say some probably just like, look, you got to go get this and that. I mean, anybody that has a 17-year-old kid that is going to go get their first job, ask them what they've required, him or her to go do. And I think most of the time it's like, get your parents to go pay for, some work shoes, or, I know my kid had to pay for like his own like nice shirt, not a safety thing, but his own nice shirt to go work at a very heavily regarded restaurant group. So, again, it sounds, for the most part, like it can get expensive, and there's a lot of that stuff that, restaurants don't necessarily want to provide, not because they don't want to, they just don't have it in their line item. Right. I think for the most part, you can get people that, if they are going to make good tips and they really want to work there, to go buy, a pair of work. I mean, you're going to go buy gym shoes, right? Well, this is your work. I mean, if I go to an office and I got to get, shiny Dockers, to go work in an attorney firm, they're not paying for it. So it's kind of one and the same. But when you're looking at stuff like, things for knife storage, or you're looking for the actual safety mats, or you're looking for even like cut gloves for specific jobs, the restaurants will generally have that stuff on hand and provide those sorts of things.
Right. In terms of the training associated with this, you said, during your pre-shift meeting or whatever, do you actually have to document that the training took place, or is it enough just to have is there, there's the documentation of the things you can do to make your space more safe, and then maybe like the initial training during the onboarding, but is there, like, say if we do like quarterly training where this resurfaces once a quarter, can we get an even lower rate? Are there things we can do like that, or is it kind of like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And a lot of people ask that, and they think that by doing what they, in my opinion, they should be doing anyways, it's going to like knock their insurance down to zero because they're doing all the things, right? And in some aspects, in some cases, I think you can push the envelope a little bit, but there's only going to be so much margin in the premium. The premium is going to be what the premium is. I mean, we've gotten to a point in Arizona where work comp rates are so low, the lowest they've ever been, and keep going down 5-6%. Everybody wants the business because it seems to be profitable business for the carrier. So they're like, how do they compete with each other? It's way different as opposed to liquor liability. They just keep lowering the rates, or they keep packaging it together with the package. So that being said, like, there's just not a lot of wiggle room on work comp policies for the most part. You're really doing this stuff from the practice and the protocol of just wanting to make sure that your employees are safe and that you're not dealing with the aspect of any sort of a tragedy. Or, I mean, think about this. I mean, insurance, yeah, it might be a policy and it might be a payout, but insurance is also the aspect that all of your employees day after day are safe and that they're okay. And you're not having to finagle your schedule, go hire somebody else. There's a lot of work that goes into somebody getting hurt above and beyond just, paying for their medical expenses.
Right, right. We've covered a lot, man. We've covered a lot. So up to this point, we've talked about, why does workers' comp matter to restaurants? We covered a brief history of workers' comp. We talked state by state mandates and variations, the benefits of workers' comp. We covered common claims in the industry, and we just wrapped up the safety measures to prevent workers' comp claims. And now let's get into handling a workers' comp claim. Unless you're not ready to move on, I don't want to cut you short.
No, I think we're ready. So claims happen. They will happen. One of the biggest questions I ever get, even from a seasoned restaurateur, what do I do? I can't even tell you how many text messages I've gotten on a Saturday or a Sunday. And they're like, what hospital can they go to? What do we do? Right? Nobody knows what to do when something happens. And it's real simple. You're going to, so from, I'm gonna go from a restaurant operator's perspective. Okay, when something happens, you want to obviously engage the employee, find out what's going on, how severe it is. Now, there are some work comp carriers, and you probably want to check with your own. They may have a nurse triage hotline. So if you see that this is something like maybe a minor cut, or maybe it's I don't know, like a bump or something that you don't feel like is necessarily emergency room, like, doesn't constitute doing that right away. You call the nurse triage. They come on, they get on the phone with you, they look at the injury, they diagnose it over the phone, tell them what to do, whether to go somewhere further or not. Believe it, this is a great service that's come into play with work comp just in the most recent, probably 5 years. And a lot of these carriers are doing this. Something like this is a great benefit to have with a carrier because it doesn't really, how do I say, help? It doesn't hurt your claims like reporting. It's one of those things that is actually very much a positive thing to use. It's showing that you're utilizing things to keep your employees safe and to get, quick answers and not necessarily send somebody to the emergency room that could cost $10,000 out of the pocket, right, for a cut, whereas that was really your only choice before, because you always do want to get the first aid and the proper the proper coverage for that person, because we've had situations where they may not have filed a claim, person had a cut, they ended up having a really bad infection, next thing you know they lose part of their hand or something gets inside their system. The claim was never presented to the carrier. Now the carrier is like, why didn't you send this to us right away? And now you can get into a whole mess of legalities of whether they need to pay it or not pay it because it wasn't reported. So always make sure that you do report a claim if you're sending somebody off. But when you're calling the nurse triage, they will take care of all of that stuff for you, and it's looked at in a different aspect. Now, not all work comp companies have that nurse triage. And definitely go online if you're hearing this term for the first time and see what it means and what all that entails. Obviously, you want to have first aid, on premise. But again, if you're wrapping something up and you don't have nurse triage, I would still suggest, sending them to the urgent care. And doesn't matter which one, like as long as you notify the work comp company and you file, and when they show up there, you let them know that it's a work comp claim, have your policy number. So when you get your work comp policy in the mail, take out the piece of paper or take out the email that you got from the broker or the customer service rep of the broker, put that, in the break room, right? Have your policy number there, have the 800 number to be able to call in the claim if need be. And when you go to the emergency room, make sure that they know it's a work comp claim and here's the policy number. And generally the carrier and the emergency room will talk to each other and then they'll take care of the bill. Because if you don't do that, I've seen it so many times, these poor employees will end up getting bills from the emergency room. They're bringing it back to their employer. It's just a whole mess and a whole array of things.
Avoid the headache, right?
Avoid the headache. Absolutely.
So to me, this is a protocol. If this, then what? If somebody's hurt, here's the number to call to make a claim. Do we call the nurse triage? I would think we'd probably want to call the nurse triage first to figure out, how severe is it, make a claim. And that's specific to the carrier, correct? That's where you would get that number?
Yep.
And then from there, whatever the 800 number is to actually make a claim, and make sure you have your policy number handy, maybe in the protocol listing to be able to give that to urgent care of the hospital. Those are the big takeaways I have.
Those are the big takeaways. Yeah. And document, right? Make sure that you're taking pictures of the area where it happened, of the injury, just making a manager's report, location, time, all that stuff, any witness statements, video, save it all. Just save it all. You don't know if, when, or what. The last thing you want to happen is to get sued down the road because of something that, had happened and that you weren't negligent on, but you have no proof or evidence. How long are you keeping your videotape? 10 days? Great. You're going to get a lawsuit in a year, maybe, right? So just understand that, a lot of times you're doing it just as a protocol just to keep yourself safe and to have that it's just like a diary or a journal.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network. So we've come to the end of our list of things that we were going to discuss today. It's been a long list. We're going to wrap it up with creating a safety culture. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we're all in business to take care of each other. We're all in to make money. We're all to have, but we're also, creating a culture and having fun. I hope that most of you that own an establishment like who you work with for the most part, right? Or like the people that you're hiring, So that being said, I've known a lot of bigger restaurant groups, and this can be done with smaller ones, to just create games around safety practices. Every day that you're safe, or every 30 days, you have a clock up there. When you turn the clock, and let's just say, you give everybody that has worked there during that time period some sort of benefit. Maybe it's one of their shifts off. Maybe it's a gift card to somewhere. Maybe it's a couple of some money. I don't know, whatever benefit you want to do. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be much, it doesn't have to be a lot. But when you gamify things and you make people feel a part of a team and they're all looking out for each other, and it's like, hey, we want to be safe. We want to get to that 120-day threshold of never having an injury on here. I really think that the mindset and the mentality of your organization, gets to be stronger, and everybody tends to work together and they're on the same page. And so that to me is a lot better of having a cohesive structure of social culture that is, community based, as opposed to having a bunch of individuals on an island looking out for themselves.
Yeah. So we're talking about gamifying this. I understand giving them a reward, you give examples, gift card, night off, some type of benefit. But what does that game look like? Is it when you see somebody doing something that is a safety protocol, you just call them out and you give them a $50 gift card or whatever it is? Give me an example of how you've seen people gamify this.
I think you can do a number of things. I think you can do pre-shift test, every 30 days and do play
Pop
bingo,
quiz.
do
Yeah.
something fun like that. I think you can do something to where the group gets something after 120 days. So if you are part of that team and you've worked there, during the course of any part of those 120 days and everybody together, it obviously a smaller gift because you can only do so much. Maybe you get a free shift meal or something like that, or you guys do a celebratory, somebody comes in and does like a coffee house or something, anything like that because here's the thing. Okay, it costs you $1,000 to take care of everybody. I know that's a lot of money probably for some establishments. I'm just throwing a number out there. Don't dissect me. But think about this. You have a bigger place with 60 employees, cost you $1,000 to get a coffee cart there, one morning for a pre-shift, and everybody gets rewarded. And everybody remembers that. They're like, oh, cool. What's going to be the next thing for the next 120 days or however long that you want to do it? I just know a lot of groups that have done something, similar in that essence, and it's worked out really well. They've had zero claims because that amount of money that you spend there, okay, is going to save you the amount of money that could have cost you thousands of dollars because now you have a $50,000 claim from somebody picking something up wrong, and that lives with you for a lot longer. So
yeah, I'm thinking of Hertz Schulte from the Ritz-Carlton when he was with them. I think he was the CEO was his title. And they had, like, in terms of culture, talk about an organization with a culture, they would go over their 26 standards or 24 standards of excellence or service. And, every day they would just resurface in sequential order one of those standards, and they would surface and they would talk about when they saw it or when somebody displayed that service. So as the manager, your job is to know these standards and to, when you see it, to make a note in the manager's log. So when you get to that standard in like the sequence of going over during your pre-shift, like talking about your standards of excellence, you can make, we are safe, one of your standards of excellence, and just make it a point to see to see somebody who's doing something, and just a simple act of acknowledging and seeing people as valuable for following the rules. That in itself is a benefit. That's a reward. We all need to be seen. But if you throw them a $50 bill on top of it,
well, I'll leave you with this. That's a great point. And so people like to be acknowledged. They like to be accepted. They like to be known that even in my own agency, people like to know that you care. And as a manager and owner, that sort of thing, like, thank you so much for keeping this environment safe, and calling them out in meetings in a positive way and doing those sorts of things, but also wearing the flag of safety in your restaurant, putting things up in the back of house that are showing we are a safe environment, those constant reminders, all that sort of stuff. Believe it sounds cheesy. I get it, but it really helps. It really does, because if it's not in front of you, then it's behind you, and if you're always looking back, then that's a really big problem. So
was it The Great Game of Business where he talked about where they were just tracking like accidents, and it was just the idea of like what gets measured gets minded, and like I can't. Was it that book?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I love that book.
But wherever that came from, but as soon as you just start tracking, hey, like 120 days with no incidents, and like, okay, that's the last record, let's beat it. It just kind of like it's more than just saying we care about safety. It's literally putting that into an operations manual. That's not your culture. It's what you do every day to walk the walk. That is your culture. I think people forget that.
And tracking is everything. Tracking is everything in life. I mean, look, personally, I track all the food that I eat, except for one day a week. I need a reprieve. But I know how I feel when I eat certain things, what I'm going to weigh, how I'm going to look. To me, that's important. And the only way I can get there is by tracking it. So that's become a priority for me. Just like when I'm running my business, I track my numbers. Like I need to know that I'm going to make payroll, this week or this and that. So I'm a huge believer in systems and tracking and putting all that stuff together. And if you do that, I really think that you'll make more money, you'll save money, and you're going to have a lot more, let's just say, less stress and peace of mind, as opposed to just being all over the place.
We've covered why it matters to owners to have workers' comp. We've covered a brief history of workers' comp. We talked about the state-by-state mandates and variations. We covered the benefits of having workers' comp. We talked about claims in the industry, the most common. We discussed safety measures to prevent claims. We covered handling workers' comp claims. And we also just wrapped up with creating a safety culture. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much, David. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, I've never been told that, talking insurance is fun, but dude, anything I get to do with you is a blast. And I think final thoughts are, at the end of the day, I know with what you're doing here is a huge asset to restaurateurs, and I think it's beautiful. I'm so glad to have met you, over a year ago in Phoenix, and anything that I can do to be a provided resource or an asset to anybody. Look, I'm 25 years in the business. I've owned 13 restaurants. I've been doing insurance on them 25 years, but at the end of the day, I'm in a good place where I just want to help people. So if there's anybody that's out there that just wants to talk to somebody, wants a side, sort of a conversation about what's going on and some sort of, opinion or therapy, I'm here as a resource because of you. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. And it is barandrestaurantinsurance.com. And you cover you have clients all over the US. It's not just specific to Phoenix.
Yeah, I do. If I am not covering that state, I have some absolute serial killers that I would venture to say are better than me that I would refer people over to if they're looking for that sort of help. So.
Well, I know a guy, it's you, and you know a lot more guys in the space and gals in the space than I do. So, we'll get you in touch. If you have any questions around insurance, David's the guy to talk to. This is the second recording. This is episode 1190. If you want to check out the first conversation, that was 1087, just a little over a year ago. And I hope this is the first of many conversations around insurance. If you we're about to break to do a Q&A. If you joined us live, if you're in the Restaurant Unstoppable Network, you could be asking your questions to David. He'll be back maybe in like a quarter. I think that's what we mentioned. So if you have questions, then join the network. He'll be back. We'd love to connect to you. And this is where I say any other information, contact, we get your email, any other things we should know, handles, social media.
Yeah, bar _restaurant _insurance at at that, and on Instagram you can find me on LinkedIn, David DeLorenzo. I'm really easy to find. So again, I just make myself I enjoy people. At the end of the day, I'm a connector and protector. That's my trade line. So a conversation is always welcomed. So
I can relate with that. This is episode, again, 1190. We'll have the show notes, contact information, all there. And thank you so much, David. I cannot do what I do without people like you. You make my work possible. And we're going to break for Q&A. What up, Unstoppable? So that wraps up today's episode. I have a teaser for you. So basically, the plan going forward is to reserve the Q&As for Restaurant Unstoppable Network members, in really out of the spirit of protecting their, privacy. I'm assuming the questions that will be asked will sometimes be personal, and I want people to feel safe. Mason was cool with me sharing his questions today. There were great questions, and I want to make sure that you are getting these questions in case you had similar questions. And for all future workshops going forward, when you sign up for Restaurant Unstoppable Network and you join us live for these workshop recordings, I will be doing a Q&A with all my guests. And here's the thing, you are steering the ship of Restaurant Unstoppable. What topics do you want discussed? What experts do you want me to go to? I am here to serve you, and I can put you in the same room with these individuals. If they're maybe a little bit out of your price range or you can't afford a consulting session, we can learn together. So just head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/live, join the network, and we'll see you over there. Mason, if you have any questions, try not to hog the mic. We got a lot of people that want to hop on here. Just try to make it short and brief and direct to the point.
All right. Yeah, I had to break away for a quick second, so you might have mentioned some of this stuff, and but I just curious what your thoughts are. I do next workman's comp, and it's pay as you go essentially, so it just links with my payroll, Toast. But I also have liability insurance, general liability for the restaurant through State Farm. Any thoughts of like if keeping them separate is good, bad, or lumping them all into one is even better?
No, it's a great question. So a lot of people, that's funny. It's something kind of we didn't get into here that was more, but you bring up a good point. A lot of I would assume like the pay as you go has been probably a pretty good benefit for you, because if you have restaurants experience, which it sounds you do, like in the past, you probably had audits and you just want to shoot your brains out.
Yeah, so I've owned my restaurant now for 4 years, so that's the only experience I have dealing with that. I have done now a couple audits. The first one, I learned my lesson, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, you owe us $10,000." I'm like, "Whoa," and then I would go back and do my numbers. I did it wrong, and then which was cool is they were responsive and cool. You don't owe us money. Last year, I actually got a almost $1,500 reimbursement.
Yep.
So, which I'm still always nervous about, like, shoot, did I make an error that I'm going to owe that money later? But yeah, the audit is kind of like annoying, but also after I did it the second time, it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
But,
Cool.
but that's me doing it. I'm thinking automation, future stuff, like, yeah. So,
Yeah, no, and with pay as you go, the audit shouldn't be that much of a hassle because legitimately what you're doing is you're paying actual payroll, and so there should be at the end of it, a zero balance, quite honestly. I mean,
yeah.
so
I think what happens, I didn't look too much into it, but because I do my own payroll, I'm an S corporation. I pay myself W-2, very minimum
yeah.
base, but then I just take owner draws to avoid more taxes.
Yep.
So I think what I've done in the past, and what happened was, I'll do a quick calc on my payroll and just add wages into my my salary, which then maybe skips that whole. No, it should still get adjusted because it's linked to my Toast payroll. So
yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll answer your question then. So I'm familiar with both Next and obviously State Farm. What sort of restaurant do you have? Is it in what
Quick
state?
service,
Okay.
California.
In Cali, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a place called Pita Jungle in Hillcrest. I opened up back in
Nice.
2011. Oh, dude, I failed profusely. Like,
Oh, really? Yeah.
I lost 1.5 million of investors' money. Oof.
Wow.
Cali's tough, bro. I'm glad
It's hard. Yeah. It's definitely
it's awesome. that you
It's
make it
I'm
out
looking
there.
I look at the numbers of just payroll taxes, workman's comp, and I'm always trying to find, because like we only have 8 employees,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, am I paying too much? But after what I heard you say is like, just kind of, there's a just base minimum, and I think that's what I'm paying.
Yeah, you might be paying base minimum out there. The only thing I would suggest doing if you want to put the time into it is I would contact both State Farm and I would contact Next and just say, hey, what can play them against each other and just say, hey,
Yep.
can you write the work comp? And if you do, what is your rate? And then also, because a lot of carriers, they will give you a 10 to 15% discount for putting the workers' comp with the liability policy. So
Got it.
yeah, see if either one of those will do that for you, and then you can have it all together on one sort of platform.
Yeah, and I'll check on that. And just as far as percentage, my workman's comp typically comes out to, I want to say it's about one. I'm looking here. About like 1% of my salaries and wages. Does that seem pretty accurate?
Yeah, it seems accurate. What's your dollar rate
Okay.
per payroll out there?
Right now we're 16. What do you mean? My minimum wage?
How much do you pay per 100 in payroll? I don't know if you have your work comp policy.
Oh, I don't, but like, so my payroll taxes is around 3%.
Yeah.
So, example, my payroll I'm looking at April numbers. We did 17,800, and my payroll taxes was 1941.
Okay.
3.1%.
I would say if you add all of your insurances together, I don't know if you do employee benefits or anything like that for any of your people yourself. I would keep that out of it. But if you just look at your liability and your work comp, if you're within the 3 to 4%, if you're lower, great. But if you're within the 3 to 4% of your total annual revenues, I think you're doing pretty good. Anything above that, you're probably paying too much.
Okay, so you're saying between my payroll taxes and my workman's comp should be between 3 and 4%?
No, your workers' comp premium and your general liability premium. So I'll make up numbers here. Let's say you're paying $5,000 for work comp and you're paying $10,000 for your liability. So you're 15,000. And then let's say you're doing like $1 million in sales. What is 15,000 divided by $1 million? As long as you're below 3% total, you're good as far as insurance costs. That's pretty average.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm below that
with
my workman's comp. So with that being said, probably just, don't worry about trying to get it lower.
Yeah, but again, I definitely check with State Farm. They may and give you a multi discount on that. And I know Next is really hungry right now for like any and everything that they can get. So again, if you want to put time in, you may see a little bit of savings there.
Cool.
Awesome, man.
Any other
Thank
questions, Mason?
No, I mean, like everything else is pretty cut
You
and
can
dry.
ask me anything. You don't even have to ask me a work comp question. I mean, just
Oh,
Thanks for showing up. If I
so
no, go for it.
oh no. I was more curious about your 1.5 million you lost, but I'm just kidding.
oh yeah, you can ask me that.
Yeah, no, I'm always curious how you gained your investors.
Yeah,
What did you do? What process?
yeah, so so I insured a concept out here. I still do, called PETA Jungle, and they do very well in Arizona. And we got a franchise, so we were one of the first to open up in California.
Oh, okay.
And we went out there, and I got money. I got 75,000 from the president of the Restaurant Association out here, Steve Chukri. He's actually a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Blew through all his money. So because the concept was so good out here, and people were like, "There's can't miss," they were just handing us money, right? I even put 150 grand of my own money into it, so it wasn't like I was a absentee. But man, I would drive from Phoenix to San Diego on a Thursday morning at 2. I would start at 2 or 3 in the morning, get there, be ready for lunch, and then I'd work through Sunday, and then come back and run my insurance operation. This is crazy. Oh, wow. But here's the thing. Expensive lesson, yes. But nonetheless, a lesson. I learned a lot about the restaurant industry and just all the cost and all the things that go into it. Craziness. So
you didn't have a PETA Jungle in Arizona before? This is the first one in San Diego?
I did have one in downtown Phoenix. Yeah.
Got it. So that was like your proof of concept, and then interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, did PETA Pit get you guys going? I feel like PETA Pit was a thing in California.
Dude, it's so funny you say that. So there is a PETA Pit right around.
There's one in our town. It didn't last long, but it.
And I think most people associated PETA Jungle with like extreme PETA and PETA Pit, and we were not that. We were like, you would come in and you would get like a big ass plate of fresh Mediterranean food. Yeah, dude, it was really good. I don't know if you've ever been to Phoenix or Scottsdale, but if you get a chance, like, and you're fast casual, PETA Jungle is one of the top fast casuals out here in Arizona.
How's Angie's doing out there right now?
How's what?
How's Angie's doing? Angie's Prime, Angie's
really
Lobster.
Good. Yeah,
they pop up on my Instagram feed. I mean, I think we follow them, but like I see a lot of their stuff.
Yeah, they crush it. I mean, fast casual is definitely coming into it. Are you going to hire robots yet? Or
No, we're quick service, and we want to stay that way, but we want to kind of go a little bit more larger scale quick service, not as much as like small locations, but think like larger square footage, like 4,000 square feet, but still quick service, but still have that kind of company family element where you order either at the counter, at your table QR, but you still have like a bar, walk-up bar that you can sit down and eat, but order your drinks. Like we're pizza and pasta, so we're going to be Neapolitan pizza and pasta. So we kind of So that's kind of what I'm going for. So the robot thing, like I do want kiosks. I plan on getting those in the near future, but I still think it's so important to have that human element of connection. But I still think you can have that with the kiosk as long as there's humans around to be able to have that connection. So I do want to go.
No, 1,000%. It sounds like your model is pay a little more in rent, but have a little less in labor, and then have people.
Yeah, exactly. Lower labor, maybe a little bit higher. Because I mean, pizza and pasta, you can afford to go a little bit higher food costs.
Yeah,
and you can run 30% food costs in pizza and pasta, and you're going to be making some great food.
I owned a couple of pizza places out here named La Boca, one on Mill Avenue, which is like the college town of Arizona. And that was margin wise, like that was our best performing store.
Yeah.
Flour and water. It's weird. Like for some reason, even in the world of gluten, like all the gluten issues, pizza still like I can barely eat gluten. I will make an exception for pizza.
Same.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun.
I think you're right. It's just like,
well, if you're gonna
I think it's the aspect of eating with your hands. I think that's why burgers too. Like anything you eat with your hands, you're like, well, I'm gonna freaking do it. Like, it's just primal.
If you're gonna eat pizza, eat it right. I mean, if you're making the right dough and you're using, yeast and salt and whatever flour, it's like a lot of those gluten-free crusts have like 400 ingredients in them. They're really just not that good for you.
It's crazy. That's always my biggest pitch to people that come in to order gluten free. And I'm like, hey, just so you know, we don't make our gluten free dough. We source it, but our dough we make in house is Italian flour. It's flour, water, salt, and it's at least 24, 48 hours fermentation. I'm like, more often than not, it will not hurt your gut. If you're in Europe and you eat their bread and you're fine, you'll be just fine here.
That's
cool.
Cool.
And so some people obviously hear it and they're like, I'll go for it.
So is it imported Italian flour?
Yeah.
Nice.
What's the name of your place, Mace?
So I think actually you're familiar with Sogno Toscano. I think they're out of Arizona area. If you're, they're a Italian import company. So we use Sogno Toscano. They deliver to us here. So we use their flour and their San Marzano tomatoes.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, but we do have some issues with the quality because I think of the transportation, the heat. We'll get some flour that's a little clumpy, but we're Humble Oven.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna check you out on Instagram.
HumbleOvenCO.com.
It's great stuff. It's great pizza. Yeah. I had the privilege of eating it when I was out.
Where in Cali are you?
Central Coast, San Luis Obispo, California.
Oh, I love it out there.
We have direct flights to you, I think now, so I gotta make it over there.
Yeah, is it the Madonna or something like that?
We're literally like less than a mile from Madonna. We're on the other side of the freeway. Yeah,
dude, that's awesome. I was literally just hiking there with my wife. We were visiting a friend probably like, I don't know, 6 years ago, and I just fell in love with
nice.
it. I want to go back.
Yeah. Okay. The town is one of the last untouched beach towns on this California coast, and the last like 6 years there's some new hotels that have gone up, which is crazy, and it's definitely booming, and it's a hidden gem. That's
cool. Wow, dude, it's so good to talk to you and connect. That's awesome. Play on Instagram and see.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I was able to jump on and learn a few things. And
thank you, Mason.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mason.
Cool.
I'm gonna wrap it up.
Right.
I'll be back here in 2 hours. And
all right,
Dave, let's follow up to talk about the next part of this insurance series.
Sounds good, Eric. Appreciate you.
Catch you later. Thank you.
Yeah,
This will be live on Thursday, by the way.
See you guys. Bye.